everybody, it's Laura. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel. Today I have a layout that I made for a hop that I just started participating in. It's called Stamp It Like It's Hot. I feel so fortunate to be joining a group of very talented scrapbookers. We are all going to be stamping on an embellishment this month. And this is not a very good way to start out this video, but unfortunately the footage of me painting these 3 stripes of color on my page came out blurry. So what I did was I took this piece of 120-pound smooth white cardstock that's covered with gesso, and I measured the center of the page and I painted that blue strip going down the center, and then I added a green strip on the left and a pink strip on the right. For the green paint, I used a Waverly acrylic paint. The name of that color is Grass. For the blue and the pink stripes, I used an art anthology paint called Dimensional Paint. The blue color is called a sorbet and it's called Cayman. And then the pink color is called a Velvet, and that is Pink Taffy. I don't know if you're familiar with Paper Issues. On their Facebook group, they have lots of sketches and lots of opportunities to scrap lift beautiful layouts, and that's where I got my idea for this layout. Manda Jane's layout was at the very beginning of this video, and I thought that it would be the perfect layout to try out this stamping technique with. I haven't been using sketches and joining challenges where I can scrap lift lately, and I really enjoy doing that. So I had a really good time scrap lifting this really beautiful layout. Once the paint had dried, I mixed together some modeling paste and some heavy-bodied white acrylic paint, and then I used an AMericana stencil called Pixelated, and I added some white lines on each of these areas of color. Unfortunately, some of the stenciling didn't come out as crisp as I would have liked it to, so I'm going back in and I am removing some of the areas that I didn't like, and I'm going to re-stencil over the top of it. And I probably didn't need to fuss so much with the modeling paste, because in the end I go in and I tone the white down a little bit. Even though I really like the way the white looks against these really bright colors, I think that the lines were a little bit too distracting. And right now I'm using my palette knife to scrape away some modeling paste that went outside the areas of color. I wanted to keep the modeling paste on those strips. Once the modeling paste on the top part of the layout was dry, I went back in and I added a little bit more modeling paste on the bottom of each of the strips of color. I'm really looking forward to watching all of the Stamp It Like It's Hot videos, and so that you can do the same, I will have information in the description box, and that way you could see what everybody has created this month with stamping on an embellishment. So this is the embellishment that I'm stamping on. This is a frame that I had in my stash. I'm not really sure what the manufacturer is, but it's a white frame, and I wanted to add some stamping to it in black. So I'm using some Staz On ink in jet black. And then I'm using a Stampers Anonymous rubber stamp. I bought this for $1 at a creative reuse center that's near my house. They have lots and lots of rubber stamps, and I always find something good there. And I thought that this would be a good stamp to use because it has type in different sizes. I then went back in with a Stampin' Up stamp. This is a dot stamp, and I'm adding a couple of dots in between some of the areas of writing just to add a little something different to the text. One of the reasons that I wanted to join this hop is because I really like to use stamps in my backgrounds when I'm making a mixed media background, but I feel like that's the only time I really use them, and I know that there are so many other ways to use stamping on layouts, so I thought that this would kind of force me to have to do some more stamping. You might have noticed that I was very hesitant about adding the stamping to this frame. It's not something that I've done before. And sometimes I find that when I really want to achieve something in scrapbooking or try something out, it helps me to join a hop or join some kind of a challenge that will kind of force me to get into that mode and think in a different way. And this hop is perfect for me. It's once a month, and the videos come out on the first Saturday of the month. As I mentioned, as much as I really like those white dots, I think they were just a little bit too distracting. I don't believe in having a lot of rules for making mixed media backgrounds. One thing that I've noticed though is that when I make my background a little bit more subtle, I find that the layout comes together a little bit more easily. When I go for a really bold background like this, I sometimes struggle a little bit with keeping the background from being the only thing on the layout that one looks at. If the background is really bold, then it makes the embellishments compete with the background. So I did find that a little bit on this layout. I think it worked out okay because I added a minimal amount of embellishments because there were a minimal amount of embellishments in the layout that I was scrap lifting. And I think that really helped the layout to turn out okay in the end. I'm really happy with the way the dots are still visible, but they're not as bold and they don't draw your eye straight to them. I used my paintbrush and I watered down some of each of the colors of paint, and I added just a few splatters. I really love splatters and I usually go pretty hard on the splatters, but on this layout I just added a few touches of them and the splatters are very small. I got some paint in the lower left-hand corner that I wanted to get rid of, so I decided that I was going to add a little bit of gesso to that area. And then once I had the gesso out, I found some other places on the layout that I thought could use some cleaning up. I find that gesso is great for helping to clean up mistakes. I also sometimes use Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White. That also helps to make the background white again and fix some mistakes that I have made. I wanted to add a black border all around the outside of the layout. I thought that since the frame is black and white, it would be a nice idea to have a border of black. So I add a whole bunch of ATG adhesive to the back of the mixed media background, and now I'm attaching it down to this piece of textured black cardstock. Now I'm pressing it down on the front and on the back to make sure that I have my background affixed to that cardstock. This is the photo that I'm going to be using. This is a picture of my two daughters, Danielle and Julia. We were in Cape Cod quite a few years ago, and there was this huge beach chair on the shore in Provincetown. So we took quite a few pictures there, and you could see I think it's called the Pilgrim Monument in the background. So I attached the picture down to the frame, and then I cut away the extra picture. Earlier, I used the Staz On jet black ink to ink the outside edge of the frame and the inside edge as well, actually. And I wanted there to be a little bit more contrast between the very loud, colorful background and the frame, so I decided to fussy cut a border out of a scrap of black cardstock. Usually when I'm scrapbooking, whether I'm making a mixed media background or I'm pulling embellishments, I will take the collection that I'm working with, the paper collection, and I'll pull some colors from the pattern papers, and then I will use those for the rest of my layout. For this layout, I picked 3 colors that I liked. I didn't have any paper collection or embellishments picked out. So I decided that I would add some more of the blue and the pink color by using some thickers. These are very old thickers, I'm sure. They've been in my stash for a while, but I thought that the sparkly teal color or turquoisey teal color would match pretty well with the paint that I used. And I also like the sparkly pink letters. I thought that those went well with the pink area on the background. I liked the way Manda Jane used 2 different fonts for the title on her layout, so I thought that I would do the same on my layout. I used 2 different fonts of thickers, and as I said, I was trying to add more of those colors that I used on the background. I decided to use a really old K & Company collection called Citronella. I absolutely love K & Company. And I'm sure if you've been scrapbooking for a while that you remember the beautiful K & Company papers and embellishments. I picked out some yellow, orange, and pink flowers, and I decorated around my frame in a similar way to the original that I'm scrap lifting. In the original, there was a lime slice, so I was thinking that I could use some lemons and limes and oranges. In the end, though, I decided not to include those pieces. they just didn't fit in with the rest of my embellishments. So I put those aside for another layout. But I did like the idea of having a circular element in the top cluster. So instead I used a compass, which I thought would be appropriate since it's a travel themed layout. I also put a smaller flower that is dimensional in the center of a die cut flower. That's the large one on the top of the photo. And then once I was satisfied with where I had all of the elements placed, I removed the backing from the stickers that are on the other side of the flowers and I attach those down. I added a little pink arrow to the right of the frame. And there was a sun die cut that I kept moving around the page. I couldn't quite decide where to put it. And in the end, I didn't end up leaving it on the page, even though I really like that embellishment. I thought it looked cute. I used some ATG adhesive to attach down those thickers. We all know how those chipboard thickers don't stick too well. However, the foam thickers, those stick down really well. Even after all these years, they had no trouble attaching to the page. I repositioned those letters a little bit, the ones of Cape Cod. I love the way the original had some very tiny clusters of small embellishments. I put one small cluster to the right or the top of the title, depending on how you're looking at the page. I used some tiny die cuts. I have stars. I have little tiny, I think maybe they are lemon slices. I'm not really sure, but they're very, very small. And they're yellow. And I wanted there to be some of the blue color, that bright blue color that's in the picture in each of those small clusters. So I have an arrow in one cluster. I already had the compass in another cluster. And then I had a tiny star in that third cluster underneath the photo. Then I removed that cute little sun and I added a chipboard flower. I just thought it went better with the other elements on the page. And I added a jewel to the center of that flower. Then I dug through my collection of enamel dots to try to find just the right colors to go with the layout. I picked out a turquoise, a green, an orange, and a bright pink enamel dot, and I put those on my black and white frame. I thought that I should either bring some color into the frame or bring some black and white into the layout, and I ended up doing a little bit of both. I used glossy accents to hold down one of the enamel dots that wasn't sticking and the jewel on the flower. I added some little teeny tiny jewels on all of those tiny yellow embellishments. And then I decided to add just a few sentiments, just two. And I used some Tim Holtz stickers. I picked one that says "Adventure awaits you," and I put it on the cluster on the right. And then I used one that said "Journey," and I put it to the left with the title. That was the final touch. This layout is complete, and here are just a few close-ups. Thank you so much for watching. I did a little bit of stamping on this layout. I plan to do more in the future. Please check out the information in the description box so you could watch all the other videos in this hop. I hope you have a fantastic day. I hope to see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.